Hi everyone, Gent here. So I'm going to continue in this video talking about training in a confined space. Previously I talked about the bokken and focused mainly on strikes. In this video I'm going to be looking at the Jo and we'll be talking about thrusts and looking at how a confined space can actually help with your training. To start with, let's look at Choku, which is a mid-level thrust. A common mistake which some people make is when they're in this ready position, they would actually draw their arm back before stepping forward and thrusting. Again, another problem that people might make is they might not draw their arm back, but they actually step forward and then thrust. Now why are these issues? Well, the first one, when we draw our arm back, we're actually wasting a movement here because we're actually going backwards to then go forwards, which is a wasted move. The second one, although we're not moving our arm, we're actually stepping forward, we're planting our weight in front, which might be good for stability, but the problem is we're now leaving ourselves open for an attack before we move forward because the Jo has still not actually gone forward yet. So we've got a little bit of a problem there. So let's have a look at how we can fix this. If I use this door behind me, it could be a wall as well, it doesn't really matter. But the thing is, I've got this object behind me which is stopping me from moving my arm backwards, like that. I'm stood in this ready position with my hand by my hip, the other hand is in the centre of the Jo. In this position, I want to be able to advance forward, but without actually dropping my weight forward so it's leaving me open and then coming up. So what I can do is actually take a bit of what I'd call an empty step, where I'm stepping but not actually bringing my whole weight forward. As I do that and keep this hand fixed, if you like, I'd go forward and then follow up with the thrust behind. So I'll show you again. So in this position, so as you can see here, the door actually stops me from moving my arm back, and then that forces me to move forward when thrusting. I just need to be mindful of not stepping forward and planting my weight and leaving the thrust behind. So another thrust that would be useful to train against the wall is Kaeshi. This is a reverse thrust where we draw the Jo and thrust in this reverse grip, so our other hand is turned outwards rather than being in this position. The reason that the wall is useful in this circumstance is because it stops our arm drifting across. And what I mean by that is a common mistake is for people to do this rather than move their body and step offline. Their arm moves across. And what happens if we do this is it leaves our arm exposed, particularly your elbow, for someone to do a counter thrust, or as they're moving in, to catch your elbow as you move offline. So a way to get around that is by training against the wall. I'll show you what I mean. So when I'm in this position, my elbow is pressed up against the wall, and this is stopping me moving my elbow across. I then it then forces me to move my body offline. I draw and thrust. Okay, so this stops it moving. I keep it pressed against the elbow. I keep my elbow pressed against the wall, draw, thrust. So as you can see here, the wall actually helps by stopping my elbow move across the line of attack. This thrust can also be used moving side to side. And here, where I've got the wall and the chair, again I'm confined in a space that's about that wide. It stops me moving my arm out in this type of motion, and what I need to do is actually draw through. So these restrictions can really help us refine our movements and make sure that we're using our hips correctly. It makes sure that the movement's kept nice and tight and that the Jo isn't drifting from side to side. The same exercise in terms of keeping alignment and working from your hips can be practiced by alternating from a mid-level thrust to a high thrust. For your footwork, you could either alternate your stance, or you could also step forward if you have enough space. These can be linked together by changing direction and going from a low thrust to a high thrust, or vice versa. You can also turn over the Jo to swap sides. Anyway, I hope that gives you some more ideas of what you can possibly train inside, even if you have limited space. I'd really appreciate your thoughts and comments on this, and as always, please remember to like, share and subscribe, as this helps the channel grow. Next time I'm going to be covering clubs and having a look at what options are available in a small space. Okay, until next time, take care and I'll see you soon.